Yeah. Hey, thanks, Mike.
All right. So everyone, I'm so excited, but I'm also sad because the Veg Fest is ending soon, and all that good food is gonna disappear. So I'm gonna get some good vegan food before the event ends. But anyways, I want to tell everyone, in case you didn't know, there's this campaign called $1 Million Vegan. So everyone can go to $1,000,000vegan.com, and for every person that signs up, we'll donate $1 to charity. We've already had over 100,000 sign-ups, and we want more, so make sure to sign up. And next we have another great speaker, Chad Taylor, and he's here to talk to you about the power of choice.
All right, thanks a lot, Evan. I appreciate the introduction.
Thank you.
All right, buddy. Nice. All right, hey everybody. So first, I would just like to say thank you to Mike Young, all the Veg Fest organizers, and all the volunteers for putting on such an amazing event. Please give a round of applause. Nice, thank you. And I just want to thank you for being here and allowing me to speak with you today. So first I want to ask, how many of us here have ever been faced by an overwhelming problem? Something so great in your mind that there was no way in your mind that you could overcome it. Anybody ever feel like that? Yeah. How about this one? How many of us have ever been blindsided by something that would completely change your life from that day going forward? Anyone ever have something like that happen? Or how about this one? How many of us take a look at the world around us and feel like there is no way that I can make a difference in this madness we call society? Anybody ever feel like that? Yeah. Over the last decade and a half, I've been hit with issues that have really made me contemplate these very questions. And what I can say is that there's something that these life events have revealed. And I call it a universal truth. And it's the law of free will. And I think the beauty of this law is a secret power that we all yield within it. And it's the power of choice. So this was me in 2005. Now, more times than I care to count, I had to hold my breath to tie my shoes. And let me tell you, I couldn't do it. I couldn't always do it in the first try. And mind you, this is 6 years after serving as a fit United States Marine. At the time, I could do a 21-minute 3-mile, and I could do about 20 dead hang pull-ups. And people who knew me would ask me, how in the world did you get like this? And the truth is simple. I did it to myself. There were times where I would think, how did this happen? But there was no one to blame. And in a state like this, I often wanted to blame. And it was easy to blame. To blame an unhappy life. To blame fast food for being so cheap and tasty. To blame the marketing that infiltrates every electronic device, in turn infiltrating our minds. Blame my parents for not teaching me good food habits. But the truth is, personal responsibility is on ourselves. I chose to eat unhealthy foods. I chose not to exercise. I chose to eat until I was so full I could hardly move. So people would often ask me, how did you make the change? How did you do that? And you do for so long. Well, step one was taking ownership. I had to take ownership of my current state and all the steps I would take going forward. And after thinking about what I had to do to get to a sustainable state of change, I had to really think about my values. What did I value? What was my why behind wanting to lose the weight that went beyond the material? And I had to go beyond the material reasons of wanting to look good in a bathing suit, or the fear of what would happen if I kept the weight on for a long period of time. I had to really think about what made sense to my soul. And for me, I just wanted to be happier. The addiction I had to the high-fat, high-sugary high salt foods wasn't worth the struggle it was to literally get out of bed in the morning, or the struggle it was to get in and out of the car every day, or the struggle it was just to tie my shoes. Now, to go from eating pizza about 2 to 3 times a week, and I could eat an entire large at the time, to go from that to eating kale and salads every day was not going to be a sustainable option. And I felt like everywhere I looked, there was this pressure to lose weight fast. You know, how many of us ever go to the grocery store, and in the magazines in the checkout aisle, almost every time you go through there, do you always see this lose weight fast diet? Anybody? Yeah, right? But everywhere. You know, and the thing that they don't tell you in these articles is the recidivism rate in these diets. The rate at which people gain the weight back and then some is absolutely staggering. And then really, when I learned that, it made me think, and I said, you know, I didn't gain the weight overnight. Why not just do it permanently? So at that moment, there was a moment I realized I had to look at food and fitness in a completely different way. And so then that's when I adopted a lifestyle change. And the way that I define that is I took one healthier food option at a time. I chose to make one healthier food option at a time. And I chose an exercise regimen that would work for me at the time. And over the years, that's evolved. So the other thing that I think is important when you talk about a lifestyle change is the milestones that come along the way. You know, there was my 1-year milestone because there's frustrations. It's not a linear journey. There's frustrations along the way. I can tell you that my 1-year milestone was a big one. After making a significant change to my diet, a significant change to the way I exercised, no, obviously exercising it all the time, I remember the moment where I looked in the mirror, I looked at myself and I said, I'm still heavy. I was almost 100 pounds lighter. I want to say I was almost 87 pounds lighter at the time. Anybody ever lift 87 pounds? It's not light, right? I lost that. I looked in the mirror and I'm like, I'm still heavy. And then even today, there's times where I want French fries more than I want baked broccoli. And on occasion, the French fries win. But I can honestly say this, that with discipline and celebrating your wins along the way, no matter how big or how small they are, that's what leads to sustainable change. And I can say this too, that on the other side of discipline is freedom. Freedom from the poor choices that once ruled you. And that's a recipe for success in anything in our lives. So fast forward to 2012, this beautiful boy was born. This is my youngest son, Jackson. By a year and a half years old, he had been seen by 8 different doctors outside of his pediatrician. He had seen a geneticist, a GI doctor, 2 neurologists. You name the doctor, we went and saw him. Poor kid had more blood work done than I care to count, and he had 2 brain scans. By 2 years old, he was diagnosed with autism. Now, autism is an interesting condition because there isn't any physical, measurable test result that says you have autism. What they do is they run tests to rule out any physical possibility that could be causing the symptoms, and then they rely on behavioral tests to give a diagnosis. And currently my son Jackson is nonverbal and has sensory and social challenges. Now, whether we want to admit it or not, as parents, we tend to have these preconceived expectations of our kids before they're even born. Neither my wife or I's families had ever, no one in our families had ever been diagnosed with autism. It came completely out of left field for us. And I gotta say, in the beginning, we were crushed. You know, I'd often lay awake at night and ask myself, will my boy ever be able to talk? Will he ever be able to communicate? Will he ever find a sense of independence that we all long for? Will he ever find love? And the kicker is what happens to my little boy when I'm gone. We were petrified. And what we couldn't get past was, why our son? Why Jackson? Immediately we try to figure out what causes autism. And day and night, my wife and I would read articles about the safety of our food, what's in the pesticides and the herbicides in our food, what's in our water, vaccine safety. And although we learned a lot about the safety systems in place for these things, and I would encourage everyone here to take a harder look at some of the gaping holes in some of them, we were no closer to solving the riddle of what causes autism. But more importantly, we weren't doing anything to help our son. Now, we often want to control everything in our lives. But the truth is, we can only control how we process our life. We only can control our actions. I realized that we were so focused on fixing our son, we didn't realize the obvious. He was never broken. Like any other kid, he needed our guidance, our love, our support, and a solution. And once my wife and I decided to change the way we looked at the situation, and we focused back on our relationship with our son and accepted and let go of those preconceived expectations we once had and just loved him for who he was, everything changed. His eye contact began to increase. His engagement level began to increase. Just to give you a frame of reference, every day when I get home from work, I come in the doors and I give both of my boys a big hug. And there would be days where I'd be standing right next to him or sometimes right in front of him directly in his eye line. Jackson, buddy, give me a big hug, give me a big hug. And it was as if I wasn't there. But after we made the change, now when I come through the doors, the minute he hears my voice, he runs up to me and gives me a big hug. It was like magic. When my wife and I chose not to allow autism to define our son or define the way that we looked at our son, everything changed. And not only did his milestones increase, but more importantly, our relationship got better. And I would have never imagined as a 42-year-old man that my 6-year-old son would teach me the most valuable lesson we can learn in this life, is the importance of unconditional love. Now, seeing the transformation in my son when modern science was completely at a loss, it made me consider the power of unconditional love in other areas of my life. In January 1st, 2019, my wife and I adopted a whole food, plant-based lifestyle. Now, these are just a handful of the dishes that my amazing wife has created since her transition. And I can honestly say, anyone who says they're deprived on a whole food, plant-based lifestyle clearly has not had my wife's cooking. And although it was a process that it took to get to the transition, there was something that stood out to us that really resonated with the idea of unconditional love. It was this: doesn't animal value its life more than I enjoy the taste of its meat? And that really got us thinking. And we started doing some more homework about the factory, the food industry and how that worked. And it's staggering the amount of abuse that happens to these animals before slaughter. The close quarter unsanitary living conditions on factory farms require the use of antibiotics, which also gets consumed in the meat. And then we wonder why we have antibiotic-resistant bugs these days. And then some people will say, well, you can't feed the world on plants. Well, let's take a look at pigs and cows, for example. What do they eat? They eat plants. And they consume many more times the amount of plants than a human could any day of the week, 7 days a week. And the interesting thing is, the same farmable land we use to grow their food, we could grow food for people, and people would need a whole lot less land and resources to do it. No matter what side of the border you were born on, what flag you fly in your country, your race, your creed, or your gender, we all come from the same living, breathing blue planet. Living a whole food, plant-based lifestyle has been more than a health-conscious decision. It's been a spiritual one born of love. Unconditional love is the foundation of all that is good and pure in humanity. And the more that we can adopt love into our everyday choices, thoughtful, conscientious choices, one choice at a time, we can reshape the world that we live in into one that we can be proud to raise our children in. Thank you very much for your time today. And anyone interested in learning more about autism or learning more or collaborating on special needs advocacy, my wife and I wrote an article several years back. We'd love to share with you. We printed up some copies, and we'd love to share contact information. But again, thank you everybody for your time today.
Thanks, Chad. I'm gonna get up our slide here. And Vegan Evan, I know he's out there eating lunch somewhere. He's gonna be back here in a minute. And I know that we're gonna close out today's events with a meditation from Xylo, but not now because we're not ready to close. There's still so much going on. We're in no hurry to get out of here. So let me just get the screen up here. And I wanna tell you guys about a few things. While we're waiting for Evan. Okay, there we go.